Hello, this is Vivica Williams, and you're watching Head to Head. Austria was one of the first countries to recognize Ukraine's independence, and since then, relations between the two countries have been continuously evolving in different directions, particularly cultural, scientific, and political. Now, Austria remains one of the leading investors in the Ukrainian economy. To discuss the most recent developments in Ukrainian-Austrian partnerships, we are honored to welcome to the studio today Alfred Praus, president of the Ukrainian-Austrian Association. Alfred, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's a pleasure for me.
Now, you've been in Ukraine since 2006.
Yes.
So this is quite a long amount of time, good amount of time, 12 years. What have you seen really change, let's say, even in just the last few years?
First time I was coming here, but that was just a trip, was autumn 2004. So I was evidencing partly the Orange Revolution. What I can tell is that extremely much has been achieved, but it's a far cry from being enough, because you are maybe halfway or 40% or 60% of what is needed to really reach the goals which were promulgated even in 2004 or after 2004, after the Orange Revolution.
Right. And so in Ukraine has, as you said, come a long way. It still has a long way to go.
Yes.
And what are you seeing from the perspective of Austria and the type of things that the country would want to see or needs to have in a partner? What are you seeing are some things that still need development?
You know that there are a lot of historical roots going back even beyond the Austro-Hungarian monarchy. I'm not a historian, but there is, at least concerning Western Ukraine, it's 4 oblasts which were under the Austrian-Hungarian monarchy until 1918. There is even some, I would say, similarity and some parallels in culture, etc. And that means that Austria has always, since centuries already, had a close look on Ukraine and had felt near to Ukraine. This is, of course, manifested also in the situation after the breakdown of the Soviet Union, in that Austria still today, up to today, is one of the prime investors in Ukraine. And this is showing that Austria has trust in Ukraine, and not only in the economy, because economy is always in the framework of politics as well.
Absolutely. And what are some of the spheres that Austria is most interested in investing in, has been really looking at investment there?
Prime investors in Austria, of course, are banks and insurances. There are 2 insurances which together are certainly market leaders in Ukraine. And there is left, after the big crises of the past years, still one bank. This is Raiffeisen Aval, which is, as far as I know, by far the biggest foreign bank in Ukraine, and private-owned bank, of course. Apart from that, there are industrial investments, and there is more and more also investment into services. I may talk a little bit about that if you're interested. So this is, for example, IT.
Well, first, let me talk a bit about banking. So Ukraine's banking system has come a long way since the revolution. And it's even one of the top, if not, I believe, the top ranked for transparency in Europe in a recent ranking. So tell us a bit about what your perspective is when we're on the banking system here, and how Austria sees it.
So I'm not a real expert, but of course I have some overview and some general idea and idea about that. In banking, you are completely right. A lot has been done. As far as I remember, there have been nearly 200 banks. Out of this, 120 or something like that have been closed down by the National Bank. Great job.
Absolutely.
This is one of the great achievements.
Absolutely.
I said some achievements have been great.
Yeah, these were just kind of pocketbooks for oligarchs.
Right, right. And of course, no need to talk about the big deal concerning Privatbank, yeah. But this means now, and as far as I know, even an additional 20, 30 banks, smaller banks, are still on the radar, yeah. And so maybe more banks will be leaving Ukraine, or maybe close down, or go bankrupt, or whatever. This means what is left is much more trustworthy, because it is much less corrupt.
Definitely. And you also talked about the services fields.
Services fields like insurance. Insurance is not up to Western European level, the standard, and also the mentality of people. So if you take insurance, I'm missing the word in English, if you insure a car, etc. So asset insurances, yeah. There is practically no insurance, for example, concerning cars, which is making profits, yeah. This is due to driving and driving conditions in Ukraine.
Right,
but if you go to life insurance, there has been a spree and a big upswing. And this is a very interesting business, and this is, I think there have been growth rates double-digit in the past years.
And what other areas of partnership have you seen growing in recent years?
There are some industrial companies, ventures, and also joint ventures. A very good friend of mine, should I tell the company name or should I not?
Well, if it's not important, but what...
Yeah, but for example, a big Austrian investment in Zhytomyr, 1,400 people. They are proud that they have never given in to any requests from some people or some institutions. And they have been making profits for many years. And they are donating some of the profits to the local hospital, etc., etc. So this is a big story of success, and there are also other companies. Don't forget the biggest ski factory, I think in Europe, and the second biggest in the world. This is Austrian, in Mukachevo, for example.
Oh, wow.
There are many other examples, but good examples, not only bad ones.
And let's talk a little bit about the Ukrainian-Austrian Association.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the type of work that the association does here in Ukraine.
The association is a private initiative, and I'm a private businessman by profession. But since I have the privilege to be married to a operna diva, you would say, Susanna Chachoyan, she's soloist of National Opera in Ukraine. I'm also in cultural projects, and I have been doing cultural projects, and I will do it especially with a view to the Cultural Year Austria-Ukraine 2019, promulgated by the Austrian President, by the Austrian Chancellor and Mr. Poroshenko, Ukrainian President. And apart from that, we are also active concerning fostering and supporting and doing activities in civil life. But I'm a businessman, so the third field is of my personal interest. This is business. It's a platform, but at the same time, I'm a businessman, a member of the Austrian Chamber of Commerce, etc., etc. So this is helping me to feed my family.
Well, and tell us in a sentence or two, like looking forward, what message would you want to share about Ukrainian-Austrian relationships and connection?
Austria has always been a friend of Ukraine. It still is, although some are doubting that with a view to Russia. I have seen the stories, I have read the stories, etc. So Austria is a neutral country. But, okay, Russia is 10 times of Ukraine in terms of business volume, etc., etc. So nobody can expect that the business in Austria, although they know that a lot of things are not really fair, yeah, how Ukraine is treated by this neighbor, Russia, you can't expect that they will forget about Russia because the interest is 5 or 10-fold. But generally speaking, there is interest, And there is a need, and this is one of the part of the mission statement of Ukrainian-Austrian Association, there is a strong need to improve the image of Ukraine in the West and in Austria.
Absolutely.
Because what you hear, I'm Austrian, I have a lot of Austrian friends, I still have got an apartment in Vienna, I've got a car in Vienna, so I'm shuttling with a focus on Kiev and Ukraine, but 20-30% of my time I'm in Austria, being a kind of bridge, mist, between Austria and Ukraine. What is strongly needed is to tell, for Ukraine, to tell and to do more that Ukraine is not only war in the east and taking of Crimea by Russia and etc. and corruption, etc. There are so many good things.
Absolutely.
And do good and talk about it.
Absolutely.
This is the motto which had not been fully followed by Ukraine, not only concerning Austria, it's the image.
Yes, and I know that's something that the Ministry of Information has really been trying to make a forefront. It's trying to show that Ukraine is open and selling, and you're right, this is a very necessary thing that they need to work on.
First, and the second thing is, I have 12-13 years of experience concerning Ukraine, and before that I was doing business on all continents. I have the experience in international groups. I have been responsible for business volume several $100 million and for 1,000 people on several continents. So I know what I'm talking about. The government and the authorities have to keep a close eye on the behavior of Ukrainians, of Ukrainian companies, and maybe some parts of the authorities, because everybody in Western Europe, or a lot of people in Western Europe, they know that Ukrainians and Ukrainian companies can be very tricky. So the question is, create trust.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And this is also lacking, and this has been lacking in the strategy first. And secondly, not only to have a strategy, but to implement it, create trust, improve the image and create trust. And then you will see that much more foreigners will come and also invest in Ukraine.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much for being with us today, Alfred.
Thank you very much.
And that was Alfred Praus, president of the Ukrainian-Austrian Association. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned with UATV for more.